What do you suppose was the most attended club rugby match in the professional era? Was it a Harlequins game at Twickenham? No. Was it a Leinster game at Croke Park? No. Was it a top 14 game? Yes, it was, but it wasn't played in France. The most attended ever club rugby match was played in front of 99,000 people in Barcelona, northern Spain. When people are talking so much about growing the game of rugby, why is such a prime rugby market so often ignored? To try and learn more about Spanish rugby and the potential that it offers world rugby as a whole, I am joined by Carl Dawson from the TTL Rugby Pod. Good evening, Carl. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having us, Hugh. It's yeah, obviously most people probably can figure out I'm not actually Spanish. But I'm over here living in Spain, covering the Rugby Europe Championship recently for the Rugby TTL pod alongside ATR. And I actually play in Spanish rugby. I coach and club president out here. So done a fair bit in the 18 months that I've been out here already, and yeah, seen the good, the bad, the ugly of Spanish rugby. So it's good
Yeah.
fun.
Well, that's why I invited you on, mate. I can't wait to get stuck into it with you. And I'm glad that you advised people what your Spanish credentials are, because, like you said, people might be thinking it's not the most Spanish accent I've ever heard, but he is well within his rights to speak on the subject, I can assure people. So, as you mentioned there, mate, you're a club president in Spain, you coach, you play. What is the rugby scene like in Spain?
Yeah, it's growing is probably the best option. Spain has probably got about five other sports ahead of rugby. Is probably the fair option. It's a football nation. You've got basketball, handball. You've got other couple of other sports ahead of everything else. And rugby is one of those that now that the World Cup qualification has happened, hopefully that will be the trigger for the funding to come and everyone to actually realise it's an actual sport. There's a massive following within it. You go to the Spain games, there's a full trailer park outside. Everything there's like food festivals. Everyone's there. All the kids are involved, but it's not quite there yet as the mainstream, which is not far off, but it's not quite got there on the level. So Spanish rugby from a grassroots level up is you got mainly regions. So Valencia you got is probably the closest region to where I am now, and you've got three major teams. You got Cal, Les Abayes, and Rugby Club Valencia. So they get most of the best players in the whole region. So there's
And this is
schools.
in the Division to Honor, is that what it's called?
So yeah, so the Division de Honor is the top Spanish Premiership basically, and then you've
Yeah.
got the Copa del Rey as well, which runs alongside, which is their sort of Spanish Cup, Cup of the King, effectively. So you've got the Division de Honor. La Villa is just down the road from me as well, so that's that way. Then you go up towards Valencia. You've got Valencia, Les Abayes, and Cow. Cow are not in the Division de Honor, I don't think. And then most of the other teams are up sort of Madrid and up into the up towards Barcelona and stuff like that.
So
So
is it very regional then? Is it like obviously with the proximity to France and the Catalan region and things, the Basque region, is it a northern Spanish type sport?
no, most of the bigger clubs are sort of Madrid or the surrounding areas. So yeah, you got a regional pocket there, and you got a pocket there of all, and then sort of you come down it, and then you go over to Sevilla, and you've got pockets of really big cities and towns and stuff like that that gather those players. A lot of the players are Argentinians and stuff like that as well that have come over and
Hmm.
sort of integrated within it. And we got so basically you got Division D Honor is the top level, and then you got the Division D Honor B, which is the second one, which is regionalized. But so at the start of the season, I think out of 16 teams or something like that that can be promoted, I think at last count it was 12 that said they didn't want to get promoted
Right.
because financially they couldn't travel the distances that would be required if they went up to the Division D Honor. So under under the sort of the Costa Blanca, the south region of Spain and stuff, you throw in the mix of Menorca, Mallorca, you've got all the islands, you could be traveling. 2-3 hours. So like we've got, so I live down in down near Javier, so it's right in the Costa Blanca piece. Got Denia on the peninsula as well. So we've paired with them as a club to push the S16s that I coach, and to go to Valencia, you're looking hour and a half on a coach for an away day. We go all the way across to Elche, which is an hour and 20, say. We've had a couple of journeys that are 2 hours away. So like the travel is significant even at S16 level. Lavia had to go, I believe it was a 5 hour journey to cover one of their
Wow.
Division d'Honor games. So, and that's by coach, because obviously you're not flying in between Spain. Like it's not that level, that's
Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, it's growing, it's gathering pace, and they're managing to hold international players within. So it's growing as a brand, it's growing as a piece. But as I said, the funding's the biggest bubble that could potentially hold everything back within Spanish rugby
Yeah.
at the minute, and
Go,
rugby in general.
No, oh, absolutely. I think that's probably not too dissimilar to the UK in that sense either.
Yeah.
Going back to talking about the attendances and things, I think some people might be surprised to hear that in the group stage of the Rugby Europe Championship in 2025, which we'll talk about in a minute, in the
Mm.
men's comp, the biggest attendance of the group stage was actually Spain, not
Mm.
Georgia. And of course, in the autumn, there was that game against Fiji, which I think had
Oh.
19,000.
It was unreal. It was, they basically managed to fill, I think it's the Valladolid Stadium could hold 32,000, something like that, roughly. And even then, like they've done, I think they only closed the main stand on the other side, but everything else was packed out. And you thought, right, that's the point. But the price is the point. That's where they managed to get the tickets sold. So I went up I took my wife with kids. So basically four of us. I think it comes to €80 for the four of us. And we sat pitch side. We were literally pitch side for €80.
That's a great deal.
You're lucky to get what? A pint for about 80 euros in
Oh,
Twickenham.
trust me, I know, I know. So, and that was again coming back to like the club stuff. The top 14 has a reasonably long-standing tradition of playing games in Spain. I don't know if it was last year or the year before they had the semi-finals
Yeah.
in Spain. Like I said, they had the 2016 final was played at the Camp Nou in front of 99,000 people. So, is there an affinity with French rugby there as well with
It's,
Spanish
it's
rugby?
it's it's the Catalan region. So obviously they're in the Catalan region they speak Catalan, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of French and Spanish. So that sort of carries on down the coast. So my boys go to Spanish school. They get taught in Valenciano. So it's a mixture of French, Spanish, bit of Italian, Latin, everything like that. So it's that on top of mainland Spanish. So that it regionalizes the bit. But Barca and all the way up into Bayonne and all those sort of teams through France and through that Perpignan, they're all on the border. It's that Catalan region that sort of stick together, the Basque Country, and they really get behind anything. Obviously, the Catalan Dragons is pretty
Yeah.
much is that part of obviously the other code, but they're the same passion for everything to do with the region. It does. You could stick a Catalan badge on anything, and they will get fully behind it. And you go to other parts. You go to Madrid, they'll get behind anything that's sort of Madrid based.
Mm.
Sevilla, you go down that way, they're fully on board with that. You've got you go up to the sort of Bilbao and all of those. You got another part as well that they're fully invested in everything in the region, whether it's rugby, football. They like I think what's the team up there? It's Athletic Club is their football team. They don't sign any player from outside. They have to be fully brought through the youth system at Athletic Club.
Wow. That's
So
intense.
yeah, so they come through and they don't sign anyone from external. They're fully regenerate and grow players through their own academies. They fully buy into the region, and that is you can see by the passion of how it goes. They might have bad seasons, but they know they've brought through from their own.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So that you the division to honor B, the division to honor, and then the Lusit is it the Lusitanos sit above that? That's the
No, Lusitano's the Portuguese, so
oh
it's
sorry,
the
sorry.
it's the
Iberians.
Iberians, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, they're sort of they're pulled together, but they're more from the Castilla part of Spain. So there's already clubs up there that sort of get pulled together to play for the in the Rugby Europe Super Cup, whatever it's
Hmm.
called now. Yeah, but yeah, the Lusitanos is the Portuguese. You obviously got the Black Lions, Black is it the Black Devils as well? The
Brussels
Belgians,
Devils.
Brussels
Yeah,
Devils.
Brussels
Yeah.
Devils.
So there's a really big piece around that growing, but the Black Lions just run away with it again as usual. That seems to be the common bit. The Castilla Iberians had a real struggle this season.
Hmm.
I don't think they won a game, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's not like they can pull on their own Spanish international players, whereas the Black Lions are basically the Georgian national
Yeah, it's basically
team.
it's basically Georgia. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a whole other piece. I mean, it's even coached by the same coach, for goodness sake.
exactly.
Um, so that we talk in there, and that's mostly about men's rugby, right? So the
Mm,
for me, the thing when I researched Spanish rugby, the thing that sticks out about Spain, which is so different to the likes of Georgia or someone else, is that Spain are competing at a decent level in Rugby Europe in
yeah,
men's. They're
yeah,
also dominant in Rugby Europe in women's,
yeah,
and they are in the under 20s men's or boys championship, and they're active on the sevens circuit in both men's and women's. So
yeah.
that's like something that, as an emerging rugby nation, to be that kind of universal is really
Yeah.
unusual.
100%. So, yeah, touching back on Spain's sevens to start with, the men's are obviously slightly more than active at the minute. They're what third in the sort of the rankings.
Incredible.
They've really fully invested into everything. I believe they've got a full training camp set up. They all go away. They stay together in Malaga. Sometimes they come down to Lavia as well, which is down the road. So we get to see them firsthand. We can go and watch the sevens. They do open training sessions as well for fans and stuff to go and sort of see what's going on. Obviously, the weather conditions help as well because 9 times out of 10 it's not too bad
Yeah,
out here.
decent weather. Yeah.
Yeah, so they get the train in all sort of conditions as well. So I think that's really helped them. And just jumping away from what they can do on the pitch, what Spain have done on a social media aspect as well, I think has really helped push that game forward as well. So the sevens has been really pushed forward. They proper thirst trapped everyone though. So
Yeah.
they managed to get 1 million followers or whatever it was on TikTok. And I think 82% of that was women, which fair play to them. Like they've managed to get the followers and there's a
Hey, it
price
worked for Formula One.
there's a price point there. They've got it. They've made it, and yeah, they've got plenty of content out of it. So, but the sevens, they're just I think they've just fully invested into what their best aspects of rugby is. They're quick, they're strong, and just get the ball and go. There's no sort of over complicated it. The women's sevens they're on a little bit of a struggle at the minute in the World Series, but again they're just so full on. I get to watch them quite a bit because they're on down at Lavia quite often. And it's usually free or like a fiver to go and watch. Pay so there was a women's sevens international tournament last end of last year, and I think it was £5 for adults for the 3 day ticket and then free for the kids. So I could pay fiver and go and watch 3 days of international sevens.
Why would you not? I love going to the sevens. Everyone
Ah,
does.
and that's it. It's just they managed to get the crowds, they get the games, they get a lot of clubs, a lot of other international teams want to come and train here as well, which I think is a real big benefit for the Spanish scene because they're able to get the better teams over, train against them, train with them, play with them on a regular basis because of the weather. It does really help. And then the youth system that's coming through, they're developing a lot of players. They've got a similar sort of model to what Italy have started to do. I think they've tried to regionalise some of the training centres and camps, and They've got so each region also has their own clear development path as well. So like the Valencian region will have trials and they'll have an under 23s, they'll have an under 20s and under 18s, under 16s, under 14s. They do the age groups in 2 years. So you do under sixes, under eights, under 10s, under 12s, blah, 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 all the way through. So you keep a group together for pretty much 2 years. And then if they're not quite on the top end of that level, they can stay or they can move up. So you can pretty much keep a group together all the way through to allow a continual development. And then that's regional. And then they go back to a national championships as well, which is in May in Valladolid. So I think our S16s that I coach have been invited up there as well. So we're potentially going to be able to go and do a national championships where they get all of the best players together and get to watch them on a national stage. That's at the Valladolid Stadium again as well, that they did the bit. So they're getting all of the best teams in Spain up to Valladolid. And it just trickles up. And the one big thing as well for that is kids are able to get on the pitch and meet the players at the end of the game.
So this is something that I wanted to ask you about.
Phenomenal.
The pitch invasions in Spanish rugby, right? Because
It's not an invasion because nobody gets in the way. It's not an invasion. They just walk on.
When the first time I saw that, I think it was like a game they lost in Rugby Europe. I was watching the game live, and everyone came on the pitch at the end, and I was like, "Has something happened? Was there a subplot that I didn't know about?" And I got told, "No, in Spain, everyone goes on the pitch at the end."
Yeah, and they go on. They meet all the players. They walk around, get autographs. The players do everything they can to speak to as many people as possible. You see them taking shirts off, shorts off, socks. Most of the players end up walking off just in their boxers because they've given them like to kids here. They've swapped that. It's just and then the kids are playing on the pitch as well at the end. There's kids trying to replicate the likes of Bontempo, trying to kick it from a distance, and you just got kids just playing rugby on a pitch that has just been walked by their future idols. And yeah, I think that's where most mainstream rugby's been too sanitised. It used to be a common theme. I remember I went to my first game against Quins against Bath. Christ, when I was 20 years ago, so, and everyone was able to get on the pitch at half time. I was on the pitch at full time, just being able to play rugby as a kid. And you just think that's been taken away from so many others. I get the safety, I understand that, but these stadiums are not built for safety out here, that's for sure, in some of them. So, yeah, it's good to see kids get on the pitch, get to meet their heroes, and then they can actually talk to them as well. And they're willing to do whatever they can to help the future rugby players out there.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about the women before we move on to talking about the Rugby Europe Championship. So Spain women are kind of like the top of the I don't want to say traditional because in women's it's a bit different because you've got people like USA and Canada are there, but it's kind of like the biggest emerging nation. And they are current WXV3 champions. And they absolutely murder everyone else in Rugby Europe every single year.
Yeah, they're a phenomenal team. They've got some really good players, and obviously they've managed to get a few players over into the Prem this year. So
Pena plays for Harlequins. She's been amazing.
Pena, yeah. So Bimba as well, Laura Delgado. She plays over there as well. I think there's the other. Is it Alba? She plays for Saris or Sale.
Oh, testing me now.
Yeah, there's a couple that have managed to make it out there as well and make it into the bigger leagues, and I just can't wait to see them again this Women's Rugby Europe Championships, because this is the one ready for the World Cup, and obviously they're going to the World Cup, which is phenomenal to start with. And there's a big boom in Spanish women's rugby as well. As I was saying, it's not just the men's. They've got the same age groups. They've got the same regionalised system, and everyone, all these women are not being missed from the ages of 10 up. I think is the under 10s is the first sort of age group for a full regional women's team. And you think, hold on, look, there's two teams at some of them.
There's plenty of more established
They
rugby
can't get near
nations
it.
that don't have that.
No, exactly. And they've done a phenomenal job in really hard circumstances to try and get the town halls on board. Some town halls class rugby a bit more of a inconvenience.
Mm.
Um, you can't get rugby pitches unless it's left over by the football. The football's the main source of what comes out. So most of these rugby clubs have had to make do or manage to get funding from the right places, right time. And what everyone else is doing is phenomenal out here. But if you're starting something new, you're going to really struggle out here at the minute until hopefully the button gets turned on. But the women's is going to be a really exciting. So I'm actually covering the Spain Brazil friendly on Saturday against Torrevieja as well. So Brazil have just gone and beaten Portugal in their friendly last weekend. So they've flown straight over to Alicante. So they've got that, and then Spain travel to Portugal on the 29th for the first game of the women's REC. And then I believe they've got Sweden up near Valencia, and then they come back down to Lavia to play
Netherlands.
the Netherlands. Yeah, so three big games, obviously, to start the tournament, and then yeah, just sort of progress through. But as you said, the likes of Georgia, that obviously there's a big conversations around their how big they are in the REC on the men's side. I'm not sure if their women's is even established
It's
slash
it, it's
ranked,
it's
is it?
it's not ranked on the World Rugby rankings, then they're just
Yeah,
not on there. So whether that means they don't exist or what, I'm not sure, but they're not there.
yeah.
We're going to go on to talk a lot about what Spain men have just achieved in the Rugby Europe Men's Championship. But before we do, just want to remind everybody, if you're enjoying the conversation so far, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It makes a big difference. Or if you're listening on audio formats, give a 5-star review and share a link with a mate. It's really difficult to grow audio platforms, so any support there is much appreciated. All right, Carl. So let's talk about what the men have just done in Rugby Europe. So they finished, I want to say, fourth last year, and then they've rocketed up to finish second, played in the grand final this year. What a hell of a ride they've had in 2025.
Yeah, and they really got out the gates pretty sharpish against Netherlands in the first game. The Netherlands side were full of hope and optimism, but
Hmm.
Spain just the rolling ball had finally clicked in. They finally made it. They've been trialing it for a little while. They've been sort of trying to get there with it, but it hadn't quite fired until that point, and then that was it. They could not stop, and it was a sight to behold. Really good level of rugby, and it's just again they're just so constant of just getting the ball out of the ruck, gone with Tanny Bay slotting in at 9. He's just
He's got great stats this championship.
you don't know where he's going to go. Like he's just like he's a typical 9. He's a proper 9. Like he's up for a scrap. He's always in everyone's ear, but he could literally sneak round the blind. He could pop it out the back. Wherever it's going to go, it's going to end up in a decent position to go forward. And then you can get the ball out, the ball over the top. You've got plenty of players coming around. It's like you had the 15. Oh, can't remember. Sorry, my mind's gone blank. He played in the first game, but then he retired um, uh, from international rugby during the Rugby Europe Championship because he he played in the first game, but then I think he got sort of caught out a little bit and got a bit of a knock potentially, and then I think he just didn't come back. Like that was kind of a
Wow.
shock. It was a bit of a stalwart at times, and then so they managed to replace their the fullback option, and it just added to the team again. So they've got plenty of, but the problem is Spain went into the last game with a number of injuries and players not being allowed to be picked because of them playing within top 14 as well. So
Yeah.
Spain have got that to deal with, like the top.
Who's the guy who play? Is they got a guy who plays for Toulouse, right?
Yes, so they've got Hugo Picardi, which is Mario's brother, and I think he plays up in the top 14 as well. So he hasn't been picked, which I believe was because of availability from the top
Mm.
14. So the rest of them sort of been able to be kept around in the right areas. So obviously Rafael Nieto was just different class at 8 as well. He was everywhere. Mario Picardi come back as well. He picked up a couple of knocks, come back. He was he was in the team of the season, team of the tournament last year.
Hmm.
Picked up a really big injury, struggled to get back fit in time to sort of start the autumn internationals, so he wasn't able to play there, and then managed to play. I think he come off the bench against the Netherlands, played in the Switzerland game, didn't play against Georgia, and then cemented his spot back in for the semis and the finals. So there's plenty of competition, but there's also plenty of injuries wrapped up within the Spanish sort of system. You got two amazing hookers as well. So you've got Alvaro, who plays up in France as well. You've got and then you've got Santiago Ovejo, who got injured later on in the tournament, but they got two hookers that can just their arrows is just second to none. And then they got a plethora of props, few injuries. Yeah.
Tell me about the goal kicker. Tell me about the man Lopez Potempo. Because if people haven't seen this guy, like imagine prime Lee Halfpenny,
Yeah.
but he slots one from 30, from not 30, from 50 plus meters 4 times a match. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And the thing was, in the warm up or the day before the final as well, he was slotting them from 62 or 63 meters plus. It just it's just effortless as well. Like I've watched it live in Madrid. I watched it in Portugal, and I think people stand back and just wonder how he manages to do it because it's just effortless.
Yeah,
And it's not like he's follow through. He ends up 10 yards later. He's literally just it's done, and it's just goes and goes and goes. I think he missed one in the final as well from I think it was close to 60, but it wasn't because of the distance. He pulled one and he hit the post with the other. So he had two from similar position, and he hit the post with one and he pulled the other because he tried to drag it so it didn't hit the post. And you
mm.
just effortless, just effortless again. But yeah, I've managed to. So you got Joel Merkler as well was one of the props. He plays in the top 14.
Yeah, know
He
him.
he come. I think he played. I think he played in the first game, but I don't know if he picked up a knock as well. So a few players dropped off with injury. You got obviously Bon Tempo's just he can play 10, he can play 12.
Plays for Massey in the Pro D2.
Yeah, so they've got a real big, as I said, the sort of the top, the French contingent is where a lot of players are getting on. Alberto Camano was he played in three different positions this tournament. So to add to the flexibility of options, you've got a back that could literally play in three different positions. Um, it was JW Bell that Johan Bell that retired after the first game. He sort of hung up his boots,
Mm.
but then Federico Castiglione, he played in at fullback. He slotted in, no issues. Lucien Ricciardi, he's the young lad that plays in Toulouse. So
Right.
he had to go away, come back, go away, come back. So he got into he played off the bench um, against Georgia, I believe, and then he also was on the bench for the final. So he's one to look out for the future as well because he's a different kettle of fish. Once he gets going, he just finds space in nothing. Um, but yeah, it's a plethora of players that will only get better as they play together more often.
Yeah. That's the thing, and I think that's what stands them in good stead for the World Cup is that when
Yeah,
they go into that camp for the World Cup, they'll get that time, which Georgia get all the time because they've got the Black Lion thing.
yeah,
So talking about how Spain play, we kind of touched on it earlier. When you look at the stats for Spain are a little bit skewed because they played Georgia twice, and
yes,
Georgia are so far ahead of all the rest in Rugby Europe that kind of really hurts Spain's stats.
yeah,
But still, you can take a lot of things out of it. Like I looked it up and found that um, they don't give away much gain line, so their
mm,
defense is quite physical. They don't get dominated on the gain line very
no,
often. Like you said, they play fast. They don't actually have a lot of passes, which suggests that they're boom, 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 run, score because they don't need to throw the ball around. Unlike say Wales and the Six Nations have tons of
yeah,
passes because they're just back and forth, not going anywhere. Um, they they also had the most yellow cards given away and the most yellow cards against. So you're going to see cards if you're watching a Spain game.
yeah, yeah. You are. Yeah, they really got under the Georgian skin, especially in Madrid. I was fortunate enough to be pitch side, and I was literally standing behind both scraps as they kicked off.
Love it.
So I had to catch one of the players as well because one of the Spain players got skewed out of the out of the rut. So as I was recording it, one of them come flying towards me. So I had to catch him, throw him back in while still trying to record the kerfuffle that was going off in front of me. So they're bang up for standing their grounds and causing a nuisance, which is I love that. I love being able to see old school rugby. But yeah, the physicality at the breakdown they they look they I think they fool teams thinking that they're going to overload a ruck and then they sort of step away and wait for the next. So they kind of get themselves ready to run in, run out, and teams will bite and think they will overload one ruck and then leave the next one ready for the Spanish team to be able to pipe over the top. And but the problem is they also switch off, so they're very dominant at the breakdown at times and stop at the gain line, but they'll have a momentary lapse that they'll switch off. And then that's when they conceded most of the tries against Georgia was at the breakdown.
Mm,
The guard had drifted off a little bit, expecting Georgia to go wide, and the option was on the inside. So that will come with time, though. It will come against playing against better teams that
yeah.
will see that option. And they really stopped that in the first half of the final. Um,
It was 17-16 in the first half in the final. Like Georgia
yeah,
must have been a bit rassled at that.
Yeah, yeah, they because Georgia weren't winning any scrums either. They were getting pinged in the scrum penalties on most of the first half. So Georgia kind of just like shell shocked, but the second half they just
Yeah. It
done
was
what
the
Georgia do.
rolling maul. They went to the power game and
Yes.
it really worked for them. And
Oh.
then the other thing that they had, and I'm just shoehorning this into a Spain podcast because I want to talk about him, is David Niniashvili.
Oh.
Like just what can you say about this guy? One of the most talented rugby players in the world right now.
Yeah. He could find space in a phone box, that kid. He's just again, when I say about it earlier about Bontempo's kicking, when you watch Nini Ashvili live, I don't know how he found some of those spaces. Like he just ghosts through places and just his awareness to realise that sort of ball's ready to pick up. And
I
it's
wonder if he's so for audio listeners, that was him breaking away from a ruck. I wonder if that's come from analysis that because he wouldn't normally be like the guard at a ruck or just straddling in a ruck. So I wonder if that's come from analysis. He's seen that sometimes the Netherlands in that case switch off, so he's waiting for that opportunity. But this one against Spain in Madrid, like
you just can't tackle him as well. He
what?
just seems to be untackleable. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy, and I don't think it's an analysis. I think he's just that good. I think he's just a real talented rugby player that just can see stuff that nobody else can until it's happened.
Mm.
There
Yeah.
are there are those players that are around, and you stand back and you think, how are you that good?
Well, he's going to La Rochelle next season. I think he might
Yeah,
be wishing that he stayed at Lyon, how those teams are doing respectively in the top 14 at the moment. But
yeah,
yeah, what a player. So I just wanted to any excuse to talk about David Niniashvili, and there's plenty of Georgian guys. But the kind of the result for Spain before we move on to the next part of the show. The result for Spain that I wanted to talk about, which was the one that made me go, whoa, was when they beat Portugal in the
Yeah.
semi-final. I want to believe that this is a really spicy rivalry. Please tell me that it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was. They were definitely up for it. There was the atmosphere was bubbling. It was they so the Portugal had managed to get the game in the Estadio Nacional, which was where the all the main tournaments was held. What it was an absolute stunning stadium, proper pitch. Everything was ready, but I actually managed to catch up with Thomas Appleton afterwards, and he kind of said that Portugal had sort of already thought their job done it. It was kind of it was a way they'd switched off, but Spain come with a game plan and they executed it perfectly. So I caught up with Mario Picardi and Matt Folds afterwards. I said, "What was it?" And they were just like, "We just had to control the breakdown and take points when we could." And just frustrate them because Portugal love to throw it around. They're very seven style. I had a chat with Simon Maddox that the bit that got edited out. I called it chaos, but in a good way. Like they play
Yeah.
a good brand of chaos rugby that is great to watch and it works really well. But when they switch off as well, they also it doesn't work well. So like Germany managed to get 2 tries back because Portugal were already 6 tries up or whatever and tried to run out from their own 22 and just blind offloads. So Spain had done the job. They planned everything perfectly. They would bang up for it in
But
the
Tempo
warm up.
kicked everything.
Everything was off the boot, was perfect. Just everything that could go right on the day went right. And it was just executed perfectly. Portugal had plenty of opportunities getting round out wide, but when and when they did, Spain had enough nous to cover. Sometimes they've switched off on that as well. They haven't got an extra player back round to sort of cover the back line. So they done an absolute number on Portugal, and Portugal just didn't have a response to what was going on. Spain come there to slow the play down as well. There was a lot of injuries, shall we say?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was,
Ooh,
yeah,
check that. Where's the magic sponge? Just check. Oh, I'm actually fine.
yes, yeah. There was a lot of that, but there was also I think at one point there was about 7 players strewn across the pitch. So there was plenty of moments. I think they run out of bibs for people that could come on with water or medical bags because it was just like carnage. But they done the job. They got the result, and they managed to take it into the first half against Georgia. But obviously that second half was a step too far. But they had the whole game plan. They had a similar game plan ready for the game in Madrid as well. But the 3 yellow cards either side and the Georgian red card kind of just blew that whole game out of the water. It was just
Hmm.
carnage. There was bodies thrown everywhere, yellows, reds. It was yeah, it was good fun to watch that firsthand. It was proper old school rugby, and you're never going to disappoint for scoring tries or conceding tries at a Spain game as well. There's always going to be tries. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're such a fun watch. They're such a fun
Yeah,
watch. So, kind of the future for Spanish rugby then. So, we talk so much about growing the game of rugby, right? And we say that no one's arguing that Georgia are a superior rugby team. They clearly
mm.
are. There's no debate there.
Yeah,
But we talk about if you're talking about growing the game of rugby, to me that means money and it means eyes. It means
yeah,
potential audience and it means potential revenue. So I've just pulled up a bit of a comparison here, and I'm using Georgia as the comparison because it's the one that everyone talks about. Georgia
yeah,
is the next cab off the rank. So if you talk about Spain compared to Georgia in terms of growing the game, so the population of Georgia is 3.7 million people. The population of Spain is 48.3 million people. The GDP, according to a quick Google search in US dollars, for Georgia, it's 30.8 billion. For Spain, it's 1.62 trillion. That's according to Google. And then language speakers, there's an estimated 4 million Georgian speakers in the world. There's a native 488 million Spanish speakers in the world. It's the second most popular language in the world behind Mandarin. So when we're talking about growing the game of rugby, why isn't Spain spoken about more? What's the thing that discounts them? What's the thing that makes Georgia so popular, but no one ever talks about Spain?
I think it's more down to results because Georgia have been able to have their opportunity at the higher state. They've kind of been that sort of tier 1.5
Hmm.
team, aren't they? They're not quite a tier two, but they're not quite a tier one. They're kind of that hybrid model, and they're able to get themselves into the conversation that, like, you haven't seen England play Spain. You haven't seen uh, Ireland come to Spain, etc. Ireland are going to Portugal, so in July. So the bridges gap is closing. But once so Spain are coming to the USA in August,
Hmm.
July. So they're playing against the USA. USA come here all the time. So I've seen quite a few USA games here. But
There was that competition during the World Cup, wasn't there? I can't remember what it was called,
yeah,
but
so
it
yeah,
was Spain, Brazil, Canada, and USA.
again, I went there. That was down at La Villa. So they done that over 2 weekends, and you watch 2 games on each weekend, 2 international games. It was, I think it was 10 or 15 euros for an adult. Kids were free, and they had like PS5s at the back, so the kids could go and play Rugby 24 or whatever it was, some rugby game on the PS5. And yeah, just got again, players were kids were on the pitch, got to meet all the players, and yeah, different gravy. But again, they had a really good a game against Fiji, but Fiji managed to go through the gears, and that's kind of where I think that's where Spain are at the minute. They're closing the gap on the Georgia 1.5 model, but until they get a proper tier one nation that's going to host them, or they come to play a game in Spain, that's when you know the tide's turned.
Hmm. I think they had Argentina as a warm up for
Yeah, but the
23, but as far as I understand, Argentina weren't chuffed about that.
no, and the problem was Argentina come here and it wasn't put in a big enough stadium, and it wasn't really there wasn't really public. The problem with all tier two nations is you don't know when the game's going to be, where it's going to be until you sometimes 6 weeks beforehand. So you can't pre-plan nothing. It's like
Hmm.
really hard to say, oh, actually, I'm going to go and watch that game. I'm going to go and do this. Portugal during the autumn internationals, Portugal had the USA in Lisbon. They didn't tell anyone the game was going on until a week before. So,
Yeah.
whereas, and you can only help yourself so much. Like if you want fans there from across the nation, you've got to give people because the three autumn internationals were all in Madrid. So for me to get there, I drove up the first one, stayed there, did the weekend with the family, did that in Madrid. The second one was up in Valladolid, so that was about a 6 hour drive. So I drove up there with the wife, the kids, the dog, went for a full weekend to get away, made a trip of it. And then the last one was again back in Madrid, but I took all the kids from the rugby club. We got a coach, so we did the coach trip up there. So that was a 4 hours on a coach. Rallied all the kids together, got them back on the coach, got back. So it's it's one of them you've kind of got to pre-plan a long period to get to, and there's not one big Spain rugby base. There's not one stadium that they can call their own. Like obviously you got the Principality, you got Twickenham, you got obviously got the Aviva and all these other big stadiums around the world that everyone knows is a rugby stadium. You haven't got that in Spain. So the stadium in Madrid that was played is actually the university stadium. They have to apply to borrow it to play international games. And until Spain are able to manage to create that home base, I think that will also be the decider of when the game's moving on here. Everything's in line, everything's ready. The player base, the way they play rugby is there. It's just that final buy-in by the whole of Spain that this is actually a sport that we're actually pretty decent at and we're going to get behind.
Well, hopefully the World Cup is the moment where that happens. Of
Yeah,
course, everyone, I'm sure there'll be people listening to this, watching this, who are asking the question already. Spain could qualify for the last two World Cups, but weren't able to go. Can just for the so they were disqualified from Rugby Europe for fielding ineligible players. Now that makes it sound like they were going, "Hey, you're French, don't tell anybody." Like that's not what happened, was it? It was actually
no,
quite a paperworky like
yeah.
kind of reason, wasn't it?
It was down to the ever changing residency rulings by World Rugby as well. So like players had to reside. I think it was on the cusp of where it was supposed to have been 3 years, but there was a clause that it had to be 5 years for certain pieces, and they got caught out twice. Simple as that. Whereas Spain's really good at bureaucracy. They love paperwork. There's a lot of extra paperwork for paperwork, but they somehow managed to miss that bit of paperwork twice. So that's kind of caught them out. And yeah, so the last time was what, 1999 that they got to the World Cup. Was that right?
Let's say it is. Hang on.
I'm pretty sure it's 1999 was the last time they got to the World Cup.
It was, yes, 1999, correct.
So that's the last time they made it. Obviously, blown the last two due to admin errors. This has got to be the time. So there's also rumblings that they are going to actually make a bid to host the 2035 World Cup as well.
That would be fun.
Yeah, because they've got a lot of stadiums to build, or they've got a lot of relationships to close the
Yeah, a
gap
lot of
with the.
stadiums to borrow.
Yeah, yeah. They've either got to build them or they've got to borrow them from the football contingent. So yeah, but again, they've got what a place to come and hold a World Cup if you can get that opportunity. And I think that'll be also the further turning point as well is getting the validity of Spanish rugby in a World Cup and then hosting one. That'll be that'll be it. So the next sort of 10 years for Spanish rugby, the sky's the limit. It's just the only problem from me at the minute, from the inside out, is Spain's success will grow too much and nothing else underneath it will be able to support it. So my fear is the bubble will burst through the success and they won't be able to sustain it because they can't keep up with the actual foundations under it. They're building this massive thing. It's like an iceberg at the minute. There's literally it's being held up with this little tippy. It's an upside down iceberg. It could fall over at any point. It grows up. It's getting bigger and bigger, and it could just tilt over at any point.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you that you got there, you've got it's growing as a sport. There's some legacy there, there's some heritage there. You're competing on men's, women's, under 27s, everything like that.
Yeah,
You just you don't have what Portugal had. Because let's not act like 5 years ago everyone was talking about Portugal. They beat Fiji at the World Cup
yeah,
and then everyone was they became trendy. So Spain just need that moment to become trendy. But
yeah,
like you say, it's about being able to capitalize on that because we haven't talked much about Portugal, but they've fallen away since the World Cup, which is
yeah.
why Spain have been able to capitalize. So yeah, it's just fascinating. But it's absolutely for me one of the stories in rugby to watch because, like I said, I think
Mm.
there's massive potential for Spanish rugby. So that does come to the end of the chat that we're going to have this evening, Carl. So just thank you for joining me. Tell us a bit about your podcast, about the TTL podcast, and what you're trying to do with that project.
Yeah, so rugby through the leagues is I kind of just saw the gap in the market here in Spain of tier two nations and sort of grassroots rugby not being visualized and sort of accessible enough to people. So I started this about a year ago and then managed to slowly grow that on the Spanish side. And then I did, during back in the summer, I went back to England to visit family and managed to do a couple of grassroots games and managed to cover that. So we do our grassroots rugby days back in England and managed to drag a couple of mates into that. So we try and grow the game. It's predominantly in Hampshire at the minute. So obviously, if anyone that wants to join the clan and spread the word elsewhere, we're more than welcome. Um, and then I just, yeah, started doing podcasts with people from outside of the mainstream part of rugby. So not your standard top level people, but DORs, coaches. These people that make the game tick, but don't get spoken about enough as well. So I had a couple of pros on, but yeah, mainly want to try and unearth those hidden gems that make the game really tick and how we actually see the game from outside of the mainstream stuff. So that's what I really love and really want to do. And yeah, it's good fun. I ramble a lot, chat a lot of shit about rugby, but I live it, I do it. I can actually back it up. I've got back playing myself at 34 after a couple of years out, and yeah, I just got a real passion for the game of being able to get out on that paddock and face another man that wants to run at you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just let's quickly mention it as well. You and I have a link through another
Yeah.
organization, is that we both do a little bit of work for All Things Rugby. So tell us about your involvement in that, how you got into that.
Yeah, so obviously we both know Sunir, who's a brand manager over at ATR, and obviously I started the conversation with Sunir probably nearly a year ago now, and we sort of kept in touch with whatever was going on, and the Rugby Europe stuff come up with them having access to the tournament. I I actually sponsored the API link with them for the oval stuff, so we could give the data to everyone for the on their app. So I saw a really big opportunity for that to be able to cover that as well as sponsor accessibility for grassroots rugby. Sort of put me money where my mouth was and made sure we could push it forward. And yeah, and then managed to go pitch side and get to meet all these players and get to watch all these games. And yeah, it's a real good brand of rugby to be with as well. ATR have got a real purpose to push the game forward from all aspects rather than the normal way of doing it. So it's a great sort of company to align myself with, and I'm sure you're the same. More than happy to call rugby out as it is, and hopefully we can make it move forward because somebody's got to shake the tree to make it move along a little bit at times.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like I said, that comes to an end of our chat. So, thank you to everybody who's listened and watched. Like I said, if you'd like to subscribe or give a 5-star rating on the order formats, that's massively appreciated. If you've stuck around this long, you clearly like something about what you've seen. So, if you'd like to support the channel even more, you can get membership for 99 pence per month, which is the lowest that YouTube lets you set membership at. And if you do that, it just makes it a bit easier to free up the time to have more great conversations like this. So, Carl, massive thanks to educating us on Spanish rugby this evening. I hope that everybody took as much value from it as I did. And that just leaves me to say, enjoy the rugby, and I hope everybody's team wins. Cheers.
Cheers.